Good afternoon, committee members, members of the public. Welcome to this afternoon's District Planning Committee meeting, and I'll start this meeting at 2 o'clock. Before we get into the meat of the agenda, I've got some housekeeping that needs to be read out, and I will pass that over to my Vice Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Safety announcement. The building fire alarm signal is a continuous two-tone alarm. On hearing the evacuation alarm, leave the building by the nearest marked exit route. Follow the green signs to the assembly point, which is a large staff car park opposite the entrance to the building. Anyone who cannot use the stairs will be helped by the officers present after other people have left. Do not return to the building until told it is safe to do so by any authorised officer. The whole of the council site is no smoking area, and mobile phones must be switched to silent or off, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair. By way of introductions, my name is Councillor Dick Sweat and I'm chairing this meeting. To my right is Sally Blomfield, Divisional Leader for Planning and Economy. To her right is the Case Officer for the first application, Joseph Swift, Senior Planning Officer. In the corner we have Ellen, who's looking after the technical bits of the meeting today. To my left is Councillor Bruce Forbes, who's my Vice Chairman. To his left is Mr Tom Clark, Head of Regulatory Services. And in the corner we have Alison Hammond, who's very kindly taken the minutes for us today. Item 1 on the agenda is to receive apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Peacock at the moment. Item 2 is to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. Do I have any? I see none. Thank you. Item 3 is to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting of the District Planning Committee held on the 17th of March 22. There is one amendment to the minutes on page 5. Councillor Hatton was missed off the list of the people who voted. That has now been amended and that did not affect the outcome of the vote. Oh, sorry, I need to go a bit further. Can members vote on those minutes using your voting buttons, please? Straight.
Pressing the green button.
6. Mr. Clark, will take that as agreed. Moving to item 4, to consider any items that the Chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. And we go to the item 5, which is DM 213385, land to the south of Kingsway, Burgess Hill, West Sussex. And I will pass it over to the Case Officer, Joseph Swift. And can I just remind members to speak up into the mic for those that have got hearing aids? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. We have a number of updates on the update sheets, which I'll just take you through. The first one on page 27 is to delete the phrase, as the proposed scheme does not comply with certain aspects of the development plan, other material considerations need to be considered in determining this application, including the MPPF. That is to be deleted. On page 28, condition 3 has been amended It's just the wording, we had dwellings instead of care homes, so that's all the amendment to that condition. In regards to condition 6, it has been amended, and again, this is just a small amendment. It's removed a section within there about the extended glazing, just to glazing and cladding. Following discussions with the Environmental Protection Officer, provided that the 5 EV charging points are to a minimum of 7 kilowatts and secured by condition, it was then advised that condition 11 on air quality is no longer required and has been deleted, and it has been replaced with a condition to secure the EV charging points. In addition to this, condition 19 has been deleted as it meets the exception within policy DP28, as such is no longer required. Condition 20 has been amended, so the wording now is the development shall be carried out in accordance with the sustainability statement submitted as part of the application. On completion of the development, an independent final report shall be prepared and submitted to the local planning authority to demonstrate that the care home has been constructed in accordance with the sustainability statement, and that is for the same reason as previously. Apologies, it says amend condition 21, but we haven't got the amended wording on the update. This is per the ecology officer comments on page 59 and 60, and it reads, no development shall commence until the following details have been submitted to and approved by the local planning authority: a wildlife mitigation and habitat protection plan, which may be integrated with tree protection measures, a habitat enhancement management plan, which may be integrated into a landscape and ecology enhancement and management plan, and an external lighting assessment demonstrating how light pollution of surrounding tree belts will be avoided to prevent impacts on bats and other nocturnal wildlife. The approved details shall be implemented in full unless otherwise approved in writing by the local planning authority. And the reason is to prevent the loss and contribute to a net gain in biodiversity in accordance with policies DP37, DP38 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan and paragraph 180 of the MPPF. An additional condition has been attached to secure cycle parking. And finally, we've had additional, for page 34, Appendix B, an additional consultation response from the urban designer confirming a condition for the drains pipes is required. It was also worth noting we have received an additional representation letter since this update was provided. Is the issues raised is in terms of overdevelopment, noise and light, which is similar to the representations already received on this application. That is the end of the updates. The application site is shown outlined in red. It is a triangle-shaped plot located to the southeast of Kingsway in Burgess Hill. It has the railway line running to the southwestern boundary, and we have residential development of Unicorn Way and Hysteria Place to the northeast. The site is surrounded on the Kingsway boundary by a group of trees which are subject to a tree preservation order, and again on the boundary with the residential properties, these trees are subject also to a tree preservation order, and the parcel of land to the southeastern corner is designated as ancient woodland. The plot plan shows here the layout of the scheme. There's a significant change in levels towards the southwestern corner. As such, the proposed access is located to the north, where the site levels are much lower, and the change in levels is reduced. The access leads into the proposed car park, which will provide 21 car parking spaces, with the care home located to the southern part of the site. The landscaping plan submitted as part of the application. The proposal will result in the loss of 8 trees in order to form the proposed access point. and the proposal will involve the raising of the land levels at a few pinch points along the north-eastern side boundary, so in order to gain the access, and for the bin store, and just on these small points along here. However, the tree officer has raised no objections to the proposal. The proposal will also involve the planting of 30 new trees and large shrubs. It involves woodland planting, a kitchen garden and native hedgerows along the boundary. The proposal will provide a mix of small private outdoor spaces, which you can see a few for the rooms on the ground floor, together with communal outdoor spaces and seating. The plan has been designed to achieve a 15-metre buffer zone to the ancient woodland. This first elevation is the front. As you can see from this section across, the actual highway or Kingsway is a much higher level than the proposed site. As such, it's considered the building will read more as a two-storey from the main public viewpoints of Kingsway, as well as maintaining a good degree of screening along that boundary. It shows the proposed building from the rear. As you can see from the elevations, it has been designed with a mix of roof pitches in order to help break up the mass of the building, and also the use of materials has been, the use of materials, of different materials for different aspects is also used to help break up the overall mass and bulk of the building. As such, this design is considered appropriate in its terms of size and scale. Slide here shows the two side elevations. The first one is facing Kingsway, and the second one is facing towards the ancient woodland. The scheme has been to design panel, where overall the panel supported the scheme. Furthermore, the urban designer is also supportive of the scheme, subject to conditions. A condition has been placed on the proposal to control the details of the drain pipes, which is a concern of the urban designer. For members' information, this is how the internal layout of the proposal is going to work. The bedroom, the accommodation is all provided with en suites, bathrooms, which you can see in the corner, and it is also providing a number of communal areas. So we can see we have a small sort of cafe, family room, in addition to sort of dining, living rooms and activity spaces. Similar layout is provided on the first and second floor plans, and this is just the first floor to show that, again with the bedrooms, with the en suites and the associated communal rooms. The application has been submitted with a sustainability statement, which sets out the energy strategy will comply with the related building regulations part L2A. They have adopted a fabric first and energy demand reduction approach. The U values will be beyond the building regulations. High efficiency LED lighting and with automatic control is to be used. The proposed scheme will have a mechanical ventilation with high efficiency fans to reduce energy consumption, and will provide high efficiency heat recovery system. The scheme is to also include solar thermal, photovoltaics and air source heat pumps. And the proposed energy strategy is adaptable, so that in the future it could be connected to a future low/zero carbon district heating network, and it is expected that the energy generated from renewables on site would be equivalent to the order of 20% of the total energy consumption. We have some photos here of the site. The first photo is looking along Kingsway to the south, and the second one is looking to the north. As you can see from these two photos, the screening along the boundary is quite mature and is quite well established. These two photos here is just to try and give members an idea of the change in levels. This is taken of the bank with the Kingsway at the top here, and the second one is looking down the bank. There's quite a significant change in levels along that boundary, especially towards the railway line. These two photos are just looking south and east across the site. You can see the established oak trees, which are subject to the tree preservation orders, and beyond these is the residential properties of Unicorn Way and Asteria Place. These final photos, just in this corner is the ancient woodland, which is having the 15-metre buffer zone, and the final photo here is just showing the relationship with the railway line. The proposal is within the built-up area boundaries. It's within a sustainable location, and a development of this type is supported by district plan policies DP25 and DP30, as well as policy S3 of the Burgess Hill Neighbourhood Plan, and is supported by the Emerging Sites Allocation DPT. As such, this is considered acceptable in principle. It's also considered appropriate in terms of its design, size and scale. It's not considered to cause significant harm to neighbouring amenities, while also being acceptable in relation to highways, drainage, ecology, trees, contamination and impact on the Ashdown Forest. The proposal is also considered to provide social and economic benefits, together with a financial contribution of £12,093 towards facilities at Burgess Hill Library and £68,860 towards public realm and connectivity programme in Burgess Hill. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the satisfactory 106 legal agreement to secure the infrastructure contributions and the conditions set out in Appendix A. We also have a recommendation B, if the applicants have not submitted a satisfactory signed planning obligation securing the necessary infrastructure payments by the 21st of July 2022, it is recommended that the permission be refused at the discretion of the Division of Lead for Planning and Economy for the following reason: that the application fails to comply with policies DP20 of the Mid Sussex District Plan in respect of infrastructure contributions required to serve the development. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Joseph. We do have one speaker speaking for this application, Mr. Peter Tuher, who is the agent for the applicant. I'll take it. We do have a traffic light system. You're actually allowed 3 minutes to speak. You start when the green light goes on. When the amber light comes on, you have 30 seconds left. When the red light comes on, I will ask you to round up to your nearest sentence, please. And you may continue when you're ready.
Very much, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you this afternoon on behalf of the applicant, Frontier Estates. Your officer's report is very clear in terms of confirming that the development is consistent with the development plan and equally that the application is recommended for approval. So I'll keep my comments brief. You'll be aware that there's a pressing need for care home provision in mid-Sussex, and the recent Turners Hill decision has underlined that significant unmet need. In meeting that need, it's important that, as far as possible, we maximise the potential of accessible, well-located urban sites such as this one. Emerging local plan policy, again, as you'll know, to which now significant weight can be attached, further supports the delivery of care homes in accessible locations within or on the edge of urban areas, again, adding to the merits of this proposal. The new care home, whilst providing much needed care facilities, will also create a range of increasingly skilled jobs. The care home, as a care home sector business, will be a long-term investor in the community through the purchasing of goods and services alongside other community activities and partnerships. The care home will be of a high quality design and sustainable, making best use of energy efficient materials, renewable energy technologies, and minimising as far as possible its carbon footprint. Lastly, the scheme respects the setting of the site. Key tree groups and ecology corridors are protected, creating a distinctive life-enhancing environment for residents, staff and visitors. I therefore trust that the committee can endorse your officer's recommendation so that my client can move on to the next stage of delivering this major new investment to the benefit of the residents and community of Burgess Hill. Thank you.
Very much. So I will throw this open to the members. Do I have any questions?
Thank you, Chairman. I've got three questions. Do we know who the end user is going to be at this time? Not that it's a planning consideration. Is there any age restriction? I had a look through the conditions and I've reread the report, skimmed the report again, and I can't find anything about who actually is allowed to use this one. And much has been said about the Turners Hill application, which obviously they won on appeal, that it should they fail to find an end user on the one in Turners Hill, that application will fall. I assume the same condition here will happen. If we don't have a end user, then this will not proceed and a change of use will require a brand new planning permission. Much has been said about the sustainability of this site as well. In my previous occupation, I've used Kingsway Road. I can't many times that I've driven down that road. And I can't see where they can argue about the sustainability. This is well served by buses, that route there into the town centre. It's a very good service, so I can't see where town council will go in on that one. Do have concerns, but it is a condition because of the lower level off Kingsway, and there is potential for flooding because it does flood north of that railway line, a bit further up, I must admit, but just to make sure. And lastly, the railway line running past the back end of the care home, is there any other screening going to be involved? I mean, it's not the busiest railway line, it's just the main one which goes to Lewis and back. Is there any soundproofing that they're going to put in? Because that's obviously, you go into a care home for a relaxing experience, and then trains belting past you every now and again. It's not exactly relaxing. So those are my questions, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, well, I haven't noticed any about soundproofing, and the application site is well screened by vegetation. But I'll ask Joseph to answer the other questions.
Yep, thank you, Chairman. In terms of the end user, speaking to the agent, they haven't chosen one yet, but they have several options on that. In terms of the railway and soundproofing, on page 29, condition 10, we have a soundproofing condition, so that we can obviously protect the users on that edge of the property. At present, there isn't an age restriction condition we have attached, but if this is something members would like, we could potentially put an age restriction condition on. And in terms of the change of use, if it's not going to be used for a residential care home, they would have to apply for a change of use, and then the application would have to come back in. I think that's all the questions there.
Councillor Bates.
My concerns about the trees and the planting, I think, have been satisfied by the photographs I've seen. One of my concerns is that the building seems to be too close to the railway line in respect of the site overall. So that's one issue. Then We have mentioned the sound insulation, which is one of my concerns, so hopefully that can be dealt with. I'm quite pleased to see that there seems to be some consideration of upfront on the building regulations, that the future building regulations are not holding out for what is current at the moment in the next year. So that's quite a good move. Overall, my concern is the location of the building in respect to the railway line, the screening and the sound.
Thank you, councillor Bates. Do you want to comment? I think it's maybe it's the level of the ground on that.
Yeah, so the site is quite constrained in terms of the access point. Because of the change in levels, the access isn't achievable towards the southeastern corner, so they've had to have the access at the northeast where the levels are much lower. And then obviously then there's the car park would come in, would be located from the access, and the proposed care home is then located at the sort of southern end of the site. Our environmental protection officer has commented on the sound proofing, and he's considered that is acceptable relationship with the railway line, and that's why we have that condition to control those details. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Right, thank you, Chairman. Generally looking through the application, I'm more or less in favour of the application, but there's just one point I'd like to get clarified. You'll talk about sound insulation from external sound, but bearing in mind you're proposing to use air source heat pumps for facilities this size, obviously quite a large amount of machinery is required, and I'm concerned possibly about machinery noise impacting on the nearby residences. Has a noise assessment been done on the possible effect of the location of plant and the noise from the facility to local residents?
That was also a concern of the environmental protection officer. So we have a condition, which is condition 13 on page 30 for fixed plant and machinery. This basically is to demonstrate that the noise rating level of any plant and machinery to be installed will be at least 5 decibels below the background noise level at the nearest residential facade. So this should ensure that any plant installed will not have any significant harm to neighbouring amenities from noise and disturbance.
Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll move on to Councillor Jackson's question, if I may, just very briefly. I had the same concern regarding the Churchill retirement home development in Church Road in Haywards Heath. They installed, without permission, a huge air conditioning, air source heat exchanger unit. The size of a Ford Transit, perhaps a touch bigger. Visually, it was going to behind the car park in Heathrow, but I went and checked, and I stood next to it, and I couldn't hear it, and my hearing was considerably better then. So I don't have any concern at all. If necessary, an attenuation unit can be put on outside, and you won't hear it with baffles. Moving on swiftly, the future-proofing, which Councillor Bates has alluded to, I'm delighted to actually see the inclusion of a condition requiring 7 kilowatt chargers for electronic vehicle charging points. That's just for the 5 units promised. What I'd like to see is actually a commitment from the developer to actually future-proof the site so that more can be put in without having to dig up the infrastructure to achieve that. Thank you very much.
Well, at the moment we're looking at what's in front of us, so you know that would be for the developer. So we can't actually make them put more in. This is what we're looking at.
Thank you. Whilst I'm kind of delighted to see the 7 kilowatt requirement as a condition, I'm actually curious as how we were able to impose that and raise that level.
Sorry, can you speak up? I couldn't quite.
I was curious how we were able to actually raise it to 7 kilowatts as a requirement. Does that comply with current legislation?
Yep, so we had a air quality management condition on the proposal. However, the developer was willing to install the 7 kilowatt charging points, which has meant we could remove that condition, and therefore we have agreed with the developer for them to be 7 kilowatts. And so,
Councillor Eves.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm concerned about overdevelopment of the site. I think this is a very big building for a small plot. I'm also concerned about lighting pollution to the neighbouring houses. I'm concerned about too few parking spaces for 60 staff. There's only 21 parking spaces. The bus service does exist, but it's only hourly from what I hear, so it's not that great. And, okay, staff could probably go there on a bike in the summer, but I don't know if they would in the winter, and they have to stay overnight, so I don't know how practical that would be. Delighted about the photovoltaics and the air source heat pump, not so delighted about the gas boilers, which will be going in. And I think there'll be a loss of amenity to neighbours because of the lighting issue. And I just feel I wouldn't want to be in here. If you are a dementia patient, you can't move around much here. It's be very difficult to even walk around the building. So I don't know how you'd get enough exercise. I just think it's very cramped. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you like to comment on any of that, Judge?
in relation to the parking spaces, West Sussex Highways have raised no objection. They consider the provision is suitable for the development of this size. In terms of the building, its design, the design panel and the urban designer consider that the proposal is suitable. It is also the officer's view that the way that the building has been designed and broken up with the separate roofs and the use of materials will help to reduce its visual bulk building. And the proposal does include communal outdoor spaces. There is potential to walk round the building, which is provided with the kitchen gardens as well.
Councillor Hatton.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 38, I saw that it says that parking for staff will be confirmed later. Is that within the 25 or is that going to be extra? I do agree that it looks a very squashed sort of site, really, and I just hope they will be clever in the way they do their areas for residents to sit and talk and see some foliage and flowers and things. I think it's very important. And in relation to that, is there going to be a path down the road for people to walk in, either to go and work there and use their sustainable way of getting there, and for residents to be wheeled out in wheelchairs by their relatives? Thank you.
Would you like to answer that?
In regards to the path, there is going to be a footpath access. It's located just between the parking spaces and Kingsway. You can just sort of see it on the plan. I'm just trying to highlight it with the mouse now. So it's just running along this edge here. So there will be footpath access. In relation to the parking, there's no additional numbers to be provided. The comment from West Sussex is in relation to what percentage will be provided for staff and what will be for visitors. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick question, please. On the infrastructure contributions, I know you've identified two already. Can you just explain why there is no medical discussion regarding the CCG contributions, obviously given its C2 categorisation, and quite often members of the public query this with councillors. If you could just explain, were there any discussions or is anything or might be applicable? Thank you.
The contributions required for this development will only fall in with the TAD, and for the libraries there's no other contributions required, as it doesn't fall within the requirement of the infrastructure SPD. So that's why we've only got these two contributions.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Chairman, for letting me come back. I didn't recognise the hourly bus route, so I've just done a quick Google check on the buses. It's actually every 30 minutes. One goes, Councillor Eaves was correct, they are hourly going clockwise and hourly going anti-clockwise, but they're actually half an hour apart, so it's a 30-minute bus route into there. And I think for local knowledge, there is a brand new medical facility just going in, just not that far away from this site, and it's brand new. It's down in the old brickworks, Kingwood Brickworks down that area. I found it quite strange, because being a C2 as well, but I happen to know there is a huge medical facility going in there. And again, I didn't raise it because there was a condition here about light pollution, and it's in condition 11, which was already raised about the noise and air quality. So I'm fully supportive of this application, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other speakers. Obviously, there's a much need for care homes in the district, and we've got an ageing, growing population. So very welcome. It meets all the planning criteria, so we have no reasons really to refuse it. So I have a proposal from Councillor Marsh. Do I have a seconder? It's Councillor Whitaker. And I will read out the recommendations before we go to the vote. Recommendation A, it is recommended that planning permission be approved, subject to the completion of a satisfactory S106 legal agreement to secure infrastructure contributions and the conditions set out in Appendix A. Recommendation B, it is recommended that if the applicants have not submitted a satisfactory signed planning obligation securing the necessary infrastructure payments by the 21st of July 22, then it is recommended that permission be refused at the discretion of the divisional lead for planning and economy for the following reasons. The application fails to comply with policies DP20 or the Mid-Sussex District Plan in respect to the infrastructure contributions required to serve the development. Can members please...
Subject to the changes in the update sheet. There's got to be and subject to the changes in the update sheet.
And that is subject to the changes in the update sheet. Thank you. Will members please now vote on your voting buttons? Yeah? Press the button.
There's 9 of us here.
Someone doesn't press the button. We had a slight technical hitch on the voting. That's it, that's correct. Thank you very much, Mr Clark. We will now go on to item 6, the DM21/3959. There will be a slight delay while the new case officer comes in and the desk is sanitised. Thank you, Joseph. Two not here.
Six,
Pardon?
about original
There's only
sheet
nine.
when you do the...
There's only 9
Oh,
of us
right,
here,
update
3
sheet.
absent.
Okay, we're ready. So this is the Lyndhurst Estate, Warninglid Lane, Warninglid. And I will pass over to the case officer, Joanne Fisher, to take us through the application.
Chairman, just to draw members' attention to the update sheets of pages 2 to 4. So there's an update, there's one additional letter of representation. Following representations, there's a clarification about the Warninglid Conservation Area and the impact on the conservation area, where officers consider that the development would not have any impact on the conservation area nor its setting. Under Appendix A, it's sought to amend conditions 4, 5 and 16 as set out on the update sheet, as well as add an additional informative concerning asbestos. The Planning Permission is sought for the change of use and conversion of the estate buildings from residential to Class C, which is commercial business and services, and Class F, which is local community and learning. The new uses that are being proposed are an entrance reception area, a restaurant and club room, cookery school, wellness centre, treatment rooms, yoga studio, gym, craft centre, offices, staff facilities, a visitor holiday let accommodation, maintenance yard, external swimming pools, children's play area and a kids club at the Lyndhurst Estate, Warninglid Lane in Warninglid. So the application site is outlined in red here, which incorporates the existing main entrance, a number of the buildings including the main house, the walled gardens, various buildings, the estate yard, existing garden areas, an existing barn area, and another entrance on Warninglid Lane itself. The estate extends to some 90 hectares, comprising of 41 hectares of woodland, including ancient woodlands, 32 hectares of farmland, 10 hectares of gardens, grounds and parkland. The estate includes a principal house, a series of cottages currently used as holiday lets, a range of estate buildings, a formal walled garden, related buildings, estate roads and related infrastructure. The site is situated within the countryside and the High Weald area of outstanding natural beauty. So the full details of what the application is for is set out in pages 75 to 80 of the report. In brief, the proposal is to comprise of the following elements: the change of use, conversion and extension of the stables building, together with improvements of the walled gardens to create a cafe, restaurant and club room located here. A change of use, conversion, extension and replacement of the estate yard buildings here to form a wellness centre, including treatment beauty rooms, with a series of multifunctional activity spaces of a yoga studio and gym in this location here, craft room here, meeting rooms here. The refurbishment and extension of the main house, the holiday let accommodation, new guest holiday let accommodation in this location, 2 outdoor swimming pools, one to the side of the main house and one within the wider garden areas, a children's play area and the formation of hard standing and car parking, for guests for the development, totalling 52 parking spaces. So this slide shows the relationship of, outlined in blue hatched area is the Warning Lid Conservation Area, and the red line is the application site. So the conservation area includes the access off of the street up to the bridge, but does not go beyond the existing entrance gates, which are here, into the estate. The nearest buildings within the site are set, which is the stables building, is set some 288 metres away from the conservation area, and the car park, which is to be landscaped some 219 metres away from the conservation area. It's not considered that the proposal would cause detriment to the setting of the conservation area. Further consideration on the impact of this is set out on pages 102 and 103 of the report, and also further commentary in the update sheet. To the building subject of the application, the proposal is to form a reuse of a number of existing buildings, and in some instances form extensions to these. Some buildings are to be replaced on a similar footprint and of a similar scale. So in red on this plan shows buildings to be refurbished. The blue hatched areas show existing footprints of buildings, and the blue shows new buildings or extensions. The ratio of refurbishment of existing buildings to new buildings is 2:1. To the various elements of the application, these slides show the existing main house, Lidhurst, which is currently vacant. On the northern elevation, the rear portico is to be removed, and there is to be externally improvements to the building to improve its thermal efficiency. Casement windows would be replaced with timber sash windows, and additional windows would be provided. So it's quite a large building. The proposal is to seek a single-storey extension to the west of the existing building to provide an additional communal lounge space and activities room. Like I said, the rear portico would be removed. There'd be upgrades to the property itself. This would form a guest accommodation comprising of 10 bedrooms. So the existing stable building is shown here. So the proposal would be to convert it into a restaurant and a club room above. As part of the conversion and change of use, some alterations would be undertaken to the fenestration to enlarge existing windows on the western elevation into the walled garden. And there is a proposed single-storey extension here on the northern elevation to form a modern reception entrance space and visitor arrival point, as well as a extension where the existing carports are. To the east, a single-storey. Floor plans show that the restaurant would be at ground floor and provide 80 covers, and on the first floor would be a club room, and the kitchens would be in the existing footprint where there is to be a new single-storey extension. Preschool is to be replacing an existing glass house and brick structure. You have a contemporary design with a mix of materials, but retaining the glazing feature on the southern elevation facing into the walled gardens. The Wellness Centre is an existing single-storey brick building forming within the estate yard. It would actually be converted into the Wellness Centre with just upgrades to the existing fabric. And so it would retain its existing features and design and character. The yoga studio and gym, the existing double carriages would be retained, and the carport would be replaced with a new building. This is within the estate yard where there are existing buildings. And there'd be a single-storey flat roof link building between. So the Dutch barn to the south of the site, this existing barn and a single-storey brick building. This is to be replaced with a very contemporary holiday let providing 6 bedrooms, which could be used as a 4-bed and a 2-bed cottage, or just as a 6-bed unit. It would be built within the sloping nature of the site and highly sustainable. The council's urban designer has considered this element of the proposal due to the contemporary design and raises no objection to the scheme. To the south of the access road, internal access road, would be 6 car parking spaces for the holiday let itself, and the existing single-storey brick and clay tiled roof building would be retained and used as a plant room. Within the site, there are some existing gardener cottages, which would be refurbished and extended to provide staff accommodation, a kids club and an office. In addition, there would be a single-storey extension to the side here, shown in red, for additional storage for the maintenance of the estate. There would also be a new porchway and some openings. This would be built up to the existing wall of the walled garden as well. So there's an existing staff facilities building within the estate yard, which would be retained and refurbished. As part of this, the existing brickwork would be overclad with a decorative timber rain screen cladding with the existing clay tiled roof retained. The overcladding would help improve the building's thermal performance, and the accommodation would provide a kitchen and seating area, toilets and shower area for staff to have rest breaks. As part of the proposal, there are to be 2 outdoor swimming pools, one to the side of the main house Lyndhurst, as shown in these plans here, and one within the wider gardens, sort of near where the gardener cottages are as well. And details are shown here of a changing in plant room. Finally, there would be alterations to the existing internal road layout to provide an access to a car park to serve the development. The car park would be set to the northeast of the site on an existing area of unused parkland. This would comprise of 48 parking spaces and 4 disabled parking bays. There would also be a pedestrian footway constructed from this car park leading to the reception building. So there's just a number of slides showing the pictures of the existing Lyndhurst main house, the stables building, which would be the restaurant, club room and new reception building, which would be here. This is looking towards the estate maintenance yard. This would become the cookery school. So you've got the cookery school shown in these 2 bits, which would be rebuilt on a very similar footprint. And the building here and here would become the wellness centre. The buildings itself would be retained and upgraded. So the back, this picture here shows the back of the gardener cottages and the walled garden, where there would become a single-storey timber-clad maintenance building, storage of vehicles. That's showing the front of the gardener's cottages, side and the wall for the gardener's cottages where the extension's proposed. Buildings of the garaging, the carport, which would be replaced with a new building for the yoga and gym. This building shows the existing staff facilities accommodation. These 2 buildings would become a meeting room and a craft room. The land here shows the wider gardens of the site where there's to be an external swimming pool. And these 2 lower pictures show the existing Dutch barn and the brick building, and the Dutch barn would be replaced with a holiday let accommodation. As you can see, the sloping nature of the site here. And this would become a cycle store building, and further above would be the land where the car park is proposed. Car park entrance would be going through this location roughly. And this shows the main entrance looking back towards the streets. To this side here, shown with the cursor, would be the car parking area. This is looking back down towards where the car parking area would be proposed. So turning to the main issues. The proposal is to reuse a former country estate and would result in the reuse of existing buildings within the site for a tourism use, which would provide jobs and boost the rural economy. The proposal is considered to comply broadly with the requirements of Policy 12 of the Neighbourhood Plan, Policy DP19 of the District Plan, Paragraph 84 of the NPPF. Due to the proposal resulting in the reuse of a number of buildings within the site and the site's context of a large country estate well enclosed by screening, the proposal would maintain the quality of the rural and landscape character in this part of Mid Sussex in accordance with policy DP12, the district plan. In addition, the proposal would conserve the character of the Highwold AONB and comply with policy DP16. It's considered the proposal provides a high quality design and layout within the site which seeks to reuse, where appropriate, existing buildings and extend or rebuild in an appropriate design and form. In addition, the works proposed seek to positively address sustainability considerations in works where buildings are to be retained and reused, as well as the design of replacement buildings on the site. Details of sustainable measures to be incorporated into the development are set out on pages 97 and 98 of the report. This includes improving the fabric of existing buildings, a heat pump to the Dutch barn, which is located up here, air source heat pumps for a number of buildings within the estate yard, as well as air source heat pumps for the external swimming pools in these locations shown on the cursor. Condition 18 requires details of electric charging vehicle spaces to be submitted. The proposal would utilise the existing entrance and main access from the street for guest staff and delivery vehicles. The existing rear access from Warninglid Lane will continue to provide for existing estate and service uses as well as for construction traffic during the development. Details of traffic movements are set out on page 94 of the report. The Highways Authority raised no objection to the scheme and considers that the proposal would not generate a significant number of trips in the peak hours, which would be detrimental to the operation of the highway network or cause any highway safety impacts. The proposal would result in the removal of some trees. The impact on trees is detailed on pages 100 and 101 of the report. The proposal would provide mitigation planting within the site on a one-for-one basis as required under policy DP37 of the district plan. Condition 19, set out in Appendix A, relates to landscaping, and the tree officer raises no objection to the proposal. The redevelopment of the site for tourism uses would provide economic and social benefits through the provision of employment during both the construction period and the formation of employment following the construction of the new tourist uses. It submitted the proposal would result in 55 jobs. The proposal would assist in supporting economic growth and actively supporting sustainable rural economic development within the district. Officers consider that in the context of the district and neighbourhood plan, the proposed development of the site complies with the development plan, and there are no material planning considerations indicating a decision should be made otherwise in accordance with it. Officers are therefore recommending the application for approval, subject to the conditions set out in Appendix A and updated in the update sheet. That brings my presentation to an end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanne. We have 4 speakers on this application. The first speaker is Councillor Kenneth Boyle. You're quite happy with how the traffic light system works? Yep. Okay, thank you. So, when you're ready.
I am Kenneth Boyle, former chairman of Slaffham Parish Council, former chairman of Warninglid Resident Society. I speak on behalf of Slaffham Parish Council. In principle, we support this application, which will regenerate the estate and provide employment opportunities in the rural economy. Given our experience with other consents implemented by the applicant, we know that these works will be carried out to the highest of standards. However, we find the applicant's consultant's estimation of likely traffic volumes to be unfeasibly low. The suggestion that there will only be some 29 movements per day is difficult to understand. The officer's report advises that there will be 55 staff working on site. They are unlikely to come from the village and unlikely always to share transport. That alone could be 110 movements. Will all of the patrons of the 80-seater restaurant remain on site, or is Mr. Cherry, who lives on the street at the end of the drive, to be subjected to 40 sets of headlights beaming into his bedroom every evening? Likewise, will the patrons of the health club, the 5 treatment rooms, the cookery school, the yoga studio, and the 20+ extra bedrooms that will be created, will they not create a significant number of vehicle movements? This does not take account of the vehicle movements for the existing accommodation, the regular delivery and service vehicles which an endeavour of this size will of necessity create, nor indeed construction traffic. The access to the estate along the street is in either direction is narrow, with cars parked on both sides of the road. Even the applicant's drawings show that vehicles coming from the crossroads will have to approach on the wrong side of the road to access the bridge. This cannot be acceptable. Whilst we hope the development is a success, we fear that its success will cause unacceptable congestion in the street and cause irreparable damage to the environment of this beautiful and quiet village, which boasts one of the earliest conservation areas in Sussex. You've only to try to travel through the congestion in Hand Cross on a sunny summer's day to see what the residents fear. This committee, this democratic committee, has the power to condition planning consents, and we would ask that the condition is imposed requiring all traffic to enter from a new access off Warninglid Lane should the vehicle movements exceed those predicted by the applicant. This is something that the applicant has suggested that they would consider. If the consultant's figures are correct, there will be no need to enforce the condition. If they are wrong, the lives of those living in the street could be unbearable. In this way, the applicant can fully benefit from his investment and his clients the beautiful surroundings of Lidhurst. The residents of Warninglid can enjoy the peace, tranquility and beauty of their cherished village, which lies both in the AONB and a conservation area. This would offer an equitable solution for the applicant and the people of the village. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There'll be a slight pause while the station is sanitised, and the next speaker for the applications is Adam Richards from Lyndhurst Ventures.
Good afternoon. Many thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Adam Richards. I'm Adrian and Amber Bailey's architect, and they've asked me to talk about aspects of the designs for Lyndhurst. When Adrian and Amber first contacted my practice, they explained that they were looking for an architect to produce high-quality designs with an understanding of the landscape and buildings of Sussex. My practice has developed a reputation for architecture that responds to the character of its place. We design buildings that seem always to have been there, often by drawing on traditional forms or materials, but without resorting to pastiche. The practice has twice won RIBA South East Building of the Year for projects in Sussex, and we've won a number of awards from the Sussex Heritage Trust, including the South Downs Award for Ditchling Museum of Art and Craft. So when we first met, Adrian and Amber explained that as long-standing local residents, they'd taken over Lyndhurst in part to protect it from unsympathetic development. They were therefore setting a high bar for the next chapter of the estate. They want to create a place for people to visit that's a kind of sanctuary, a special place that represents a peaceful and sophisticated escape from the pressures of modern life. For them, I think the most important thing was to retain the character of the estate, as this character was what people coming here would want to experience, and to make a previously private landscape publicly accessible in an engaging way. We discussed the way that the estate has evolved over time, with buildings of different styles and materials coming and going, each being a record of its own time, resulting in a tapestry of structures woven through the fabric of the landscape. It was therefore clear from the outset that the existing buildings would be cherished and sympathetically converted. Where these are proposed to be altered, we've sought to do so in a way that enhances their character. An example of this is the way that we've proposed opening the old stable block to the walled garden to create a new restaurant. The existing arched lunette windows will be extended down to ground level, creating a sequence of arched openings that act as a reminder of the long-lost horse stalls within. Where it comes to new elements, we've sought to find approaches that speak to the history of buildings on country estates. The new holiday let house on the site of the existing Dutch barn makes reference to historic follies, which often had a dual character. So the side facing the valley has the feel of a kind of folly castle, while the side that faces the access road is barn-like, a memory of the current use. There isn't time today to discuss all the elements in detail, but they've been carefully developed over a 4-year period in close consultation, not only with Adrian and Amber, but also with Mid-Sussex District Council in the form of multiple pre-apps, Highways consultants considered issues of vehicle movement and numbers. Again, Adrian and Amber's desire to create a peaceful sanctuary by its very nature means that it's designed for visitor numbers at the lower end of the spectrum. Finally, a key aspect of the proposals is to seek sustainable approaches, such as low-embodied carbon materials like stone and wood, and sustainable heating systems, such as air source heat pumps. So we hope that the committee will consider this to be a good long-term plan for the sustainable development of the Lyndhurst estate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Will Scrosey Dickens from Lyndhurst Ventures again. It's no worries at all.
So, good afternoon. My name is Will Scrosey Dickens. I'm the owner and CEO of Coolhurst Vineyards, which is located between Mannings Heath and Horsham. We're just 4 miles from Lyndhurst and have been for generations. Our vineyard, in fact, was planted back in 2014. And it was planted with the intention of safeguarding the land, making it viable for a start, but also, above all, keeping it green. Our wines are proudly single vineyard, single varietal and single vintage, and in various global competitions. And ours is a small release model, producing very special wines in very small quantities for very discerning customers. The wine industry in the UK is changing very quickly, and Sussex is at the forefront of that change. This is happening whether we like it or not. Most of these changes are positive and bring opportunities, but there are some challenges. Grape yields in the UK are a fraction of what they are in Southern Europe. Inevitably, this brings pricing pressures, and you're unlikely ever to see an English sparkling wine successfully sold on a price to compete with the likes of Prosecco or Carvers, for very good reasons. That isn't an insurmountable problem, however, for the most part of the market we compete in. But it does mean that our per-bottle costs are higher than on the continent, which exerts pressure on margins and means that reaching customers and educating them is key. At present, the majority of our sales are online and direct, which is important for margins, but cellar doors sales, as a component of direct sales, are rising incredibly fast and becoming a much more significant part of our business. This will, we hope, accelerate even faster if the planned promised revision of rates on cellar door sales is in fact brought in. Many larger vineyards are merging, taking investment and building large visitor centres, which involves laying down huge slabs of concrete. For smaller producers like us, with a niche product, part of whose motivation was to keep the ground green, that's not especially appealing. We don't want thousands of visitors, but we do need a constant trickle in exposure. So wine tourism for us is what levels those playing fields. For an industry that is taking off so well, the tourism side is really lagging, and there are not enough places focusing on it and working with smaller producers like us. Lyndhurst has been in discussion with us and other producers for a long time. They have in fact purchased a minibus just for this wine tourism aspect, therefore bringing small groups in single journeys. It's a good size for a tour and has reached out, as I say, to many other local producers. Now, wine is naturally a relaxed industry. It doesn't like being rushed. Being able to plan events together with food and accommodation is a much better fit for explaining and showing who we are than warehouse sales. With the success of their project, the sorts of jobs it will help us as Coolhurst Vineyards sustain and establish our things...
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I'll have to ask you to round up to your nearest sentence.
Indeed. We will be able to employ up to 10 to 15 people on our own estate, and also keep the jobs that we have already secure whilst growing our own business. This is all about keeping Sussex green, quiet, and reusing buildings and the likes that we have already in place.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mr. Adrian Bailey, who is the applicant for Lyndhurst Ventures. And again, you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll try to keep to time. And thank you also to those of you who visited the site on Monday for giving your time so generously, and to the planning officers for what we thought was a very thorough. My name's Adrian Bailey. My wife and I are the applicants. I've lived in Warninglid all my life, and it's now my family's home. We are not seeking to leave. We are trying to keep and preserve what is here for the future, whilst hopefully sharing it just a little bit more widely. The property I inherited is beautiful and it's worth protecting. We're incredibly lucky, but it is also very expensive to maintain. When next door Lidhurst came on the market, we thought we saw an opportunity to transform both estates from just being very private, very uneconomic gardens into something more sustainable in every sense, and in doing so, to share them with a rather wider audience. We're now trying to maintain over 300 acres. We've stopped intensive arable farming, we're investing in the ancient woodlands and in the meadows. We encourage biodiversity wherever we can. We're members of the Upper Ada Group at Knepp Estate, and we form part of that green corridor. Our existing business currently strongly supports 2 other local businesses for cleaning and laundry, and we employ 11. These plans would employ 40 or so more, and all this does need funding. When I was growing up in Warninglid, I remember a village with a church, a shop, a pub, a restaurant, and a school. Today, all of that has closed, except for the Half Moon, which, whilst excellent, has still needed the extra business from our guests to get through some rather tough times. For our communities and businesses to flourish, there is a need for local tourism and leisure, which is prominently recognised in the district plan and the neighbourhood plan. We've been through several rounds of pre-application engagement with council officers, highways officers, the AONB office, the parish council and the resident society over the last 4 years. And we're really pleased that the quality of Adam Richards' design work has been recognised and acknowledged. We're similarly really pleased that the case officer notes the efforts to positively address sustainability in both new and existing buildings. We've worked really hard at that. We're trying to retain, reuse, and rejuvenate the existing, bring it back into long-term viable use, but that does mean accepting it is where it is. We're not trying to turn the site into a public estate gardens with coaches and huge car parks. We're trying to share it in the most sustainable, viable way. The development is primarily aimed at on-site, multi-night guests, generating the least movements. So we expect external traffic to be less than stated. We are not developing in or changing the conservation area, and we're pleased to see that was acknowledged, that the initial movements would not affect the historic character. We recognise that whilst many residents support the facilities, some very close neighbours have raised concerns about the traffic element, and we agree with your highways officer that these are overblown. And we note the publican recently pointed out that he has had no complaints with his 100-cover restaurant right next door. There is a wider village and area to consider, but it's true that there is fundamentally a trade-off. Lidhurst is either open to the public with a little bit of traffic, or it is closed off as before with no public value. We hope from what you've seen and read that you would agree that would be a wasted opportunity for the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think many members have visited this site, and you know, it's quite pleasing that some of the, well, all the buildings are going to be brought back into use, which would obviously support the rural economy. So, members, do I have any questions? Our first question is Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Chair. And this is about as near to my ward as you could possibly get, being that I do represent Slough Parish Council, but not actually this part of Slough Parish Council. I visited the site and with a group of us on Monday, and I was stunned at the beauty and tranquility of the site. And I'm excited for this development. This brings shades of what I do on the National Park and their planning committees, bring these old estates back into life and back into what they were. But there does, as to say, as the last speaker said, there has to be a bit of a trade-off on this one. Much has been said about the traffic that goes through Warningley, and it's too high, and it's going to be unsustainable, and it's going to make it life hell. Actually, unfortunately, with the junction on the A23, it is a rat run already. People come from Brighton, come off at the Warningley exit, zip through the village, and then on their way to Horsham, and in the evening they go the other way back. Which is sad to say is the Warningley Lane, and we heard that why can't they use the back road? Well, I came in past the Half Moon, turned left, and then drove the short distance over the Humpback Bridge, and you can't go much more than 10 miles an hour there anyway. But the moment you go across the crossroads down Warning Lane, you hit 60 miles an hour. 60 miles an hour going down on a flat road, your stopping distance is 240 feet. Going down a hill with a bend and then expect people to slow right down, that's an accident waiting to happen. No wonder the highways didn't want that to happen. So I do have a question about that, and the construction traffic will be going through there. And those who sit on my other committee know I do bang on about a banksman. I think if you're going to have slow-moving lorries going into the site and out of the site, we do need to make sure that it's safe for them to enter and exit that site through the back road. And I would like to think there might be some support on that one. Sustainability. I'm pleased with the amount of sustainability we hear. But sustainability isn't about the environment as well. It's also about, as Councillor Bates will no doubt go on about, bikes. It's not that far away from the National Bike Route 20. If you go back towards the A23, you can pick up the national route should you feel the need to cycle down to Brighton or to London. Would normally have an issue if, going on about the conservation area, if it's within 30 metres of a conservation or back to back with a building. You know, looking at what has been provided in the update sheet, I'm pleased to see it down to metres. I guessed about 300 metres. I was out by 12 metres, so it wasn't a bad guess, was it? We are quite a distance away, and much has been said about the noise. There's going to be no noise. You'll be able to hear it. And, you know, with the amount of work they plan to do, and you heard the first speaker about the amount of effort going to go in to regenerate this area and using the fabric they've got. And I'm excited for it. I can't wait for it to go through. And I would be one of the first to at least have a look, see what they've done. I won't say I'm going to stay there, but I would like to see what they've done there. And I didn't know about the Cool Hills wine, so thanks for you. Finally, in my own ward, those who know the Balcombe estate, they've had to diversify to survive. They go down the country sports. I don't personally go with that. But on one of their farms, they've got a award-winning cheese farm there. I would like to point them in the direction of your cookery school, potentially, to see if they could, you know, marry up with that, because they're winning awards all over the area. And, you know, that's the way it's going to be. You know, we've got to work along these lines. And the fact that it's going to provide all these additional jobs within the countryside, I can't think why we would not want something like this to happen. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think your question on the banksman, I'm sure the case officer would correct me, that's probably a health and safety issue with the construction companies. Is that correct? Am I wrong on that
Can
one?
I clarify? We've got condition 3, which requires a construction management plan for the development, and condition 17 is talking about improving the visibility space for Warninglid Lane prior to the occupation of the development, because that would be for the servicing and existing vehicles to make sure there is suitable visibility when a site is in wider use as well.
Yeah, okay, all right. Next speaker, Councillor Bates.
Maybe I should thank Councillor Marsh initially about the cycling aspect. In fact, the best I could do with that site visit was to cycle there and look through the gate that particular day. It is a well-used area for cycling, but my big concern there, if I'm on a bike or in a car, is the crossroads there. It is notorious. Very concerned. Anyway, overall, I think this is a very good project. I welcome it, and I'm sure it's off the back of the upgrading of Leonards-Lee in recent years. So I think one is following the other and complements each other. But I am really concerned about the traffic impact. And, you know, we've got section 106s and things like that. Mention of an alternative access point, possibly, but it still doesn't deal with the crossroads, because, you know, 9 out of 10 visits are going to be in 3 other directions to that crossroads, north, south, or from the east, or it's going to be from Crawley Horsham. So I'm really concerned that we cannot try to get a better arrangement and access to the estate other than what is being considered at the moment. I think we've got to take to task the county highways over some of these no problems with traffic to some of these sites that we deal with. So that's my big concern. But otherwise, I am very supportive of the actual application.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bates. Well, the point is, the question of traffic, I know many of the residents are really concerned about this, and yes, I sympathise with their concerns. However, we have to look at what is in front of us today. Highways have actually come back and said there's no objection, so although unfortunately they've said that, we have nowhere to go with that. And as regards different accesses, that is not what we're looking at here today. We're looking at that access for delivery and access to the site over that bridge. So that's it. I'll go to Councillor Jackson.
Right. Thank you, Chairman. I visited the site on last Monday, and it's a stunning site. It's very, very beautiful. And from the main house, landscape views down to the south. What is sad, of course, that many of the buildings, including the main house, are obviously sort of have suffered from lack of regular maintenance. And I think this particular plan to sort of reuse those buildings and modify and refurbish them, a lot of it, and extensions, is a good use of those particular buildings, with the use of a cookery school and various other facilities, guest rooms and all the rest of it, will encourage a small number of visitors, and I emphasise the intention is only for a small number of visitors to really enjoy what is a stunning site. Looking round, the particular facilities are well screened from Warninglid, although I do notice that the advent of the car park on the far end, or this end of the driveway to the north and the east, for a number of cars, according to the details in the document, there will be lighting for security reasons. I do hope, and they did talk about landscaping, that that car park will be adequately landscaped so that the car park and the additional lighting is not visible from the conservation area. So is that part of the plan?
Yes, there are as regards lighting, condition 20 deals with that lighting. It's mainly low-level lighting or ground-level lighting and some bollard lighting, as I understand.
But the screening with additional trees?
And screening, yes, it is well screened from the wider area.
Because at the moment, when we visited that site, we could actually see it was fairly open down towards the main entrance.
Yeah, if you look at subject to screening, condition 19 deals with that.
Teams on page?
Page 108. Prior to the occupation of each part of the development, hard and soft landscaping shall be submitted to and approved by the local planning authority.
Right, thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Hope that answers your question. I have Councillor Eaves next. Thank you.
And this is going to be in the trees, it's going to be far more subtle. That's great. Please don't lose the patina and the wildlife, which are two of the big elements of well-being, of course. And I do have some sympathy at the same time with Slough Parish Council, and I wonder if their condition could be accommodated. Thank you.
Well, Councillor Eaves, can you just remind us of that condition again?
Gentleman said, yeah.
That's not what we're considering here today in front of us. Councillor Band.
Thank you, Chairman. Certainly the scale and ambition of the development and the aspirations are aiming for a very achievable development. I'm firmly convinced that what the applicant has asked for is going to produce something quite magnificent for Mid Sussex and the nearby community. However, my concern, I think, rests on other councillors, particularly the Slough Council. I believe that this will succeed, but my expertise is in numbers, and it doesn't add up if the cookery school is as successful as it should be, and indeed the restaurant with 50 covers is full every night, plus the guest accommodation. The traffic numbers inevitably, whilst they're not in the development itself is not in the conservation area, the traffic to and from will be going through that conservation area. And my belief and feeling is that it will have an impact, both on the conservation area itself and nearby residents. And it's balancing, allowing that, but in terms of, is there a quantum figure we can put on there to actually require? And I accept the chair and from Councillor Marsh that we shouldn't add something on, but this is what the councillors are here for. We can add conditions if we wish. I'm not proposing we do, but we could. Coming back to the point, there is an existing extant access onto the B2115, which is used for refuse collections, and it will be used for construction. The paperwork also alludes to another possible entrance further down. I'm looking the applicant in the eye, and I believe sincerely that if the development is as successful as it should be on paper, they will come back to us and ask us for an alternative access and route through the estate onto that road, if it impacts the villagers that live locally. And one question, the main house, the external cladding, the rendering, current rendering, I understand is going to be removed and brick facings are going to actually be put on the outside to actually improve the acoustic and thermal insulation. Can I ask the officer if condition 8, in terms of the materials, will ensure that that actually happens, please? Right, that's it. I'm not going to say any more. Thank you.
Would you like to take that on? Well, I think the materials, I think that's brick slip, so it's, and the sash windows, so the energy efficient.
Thank you. Condition 8, it does say prior to commencement of any works of the buildings, details of facing materials and external surface materials should be provided. And we could put an informative to ensure that they do provide it for the brick facing for the whole of the house and not just for the extension, because obviously the application is only looking at mainly the extension to the main building, and they could upgrade those works anyway. but I could place an informative to ensure that we do include that material as well.
If I may, I'd rather an informative wasn't put in. If I may, I'd rather an informative wasn't put in, that we rely upon the condition A to make certain it's enforced and delivered.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the informative would just make them aware that's what we expect as part of that materials condition. So it wouldn't be saying we expect it. It's just saying as part of this condition 8, we require those details as well.
I think it'd be wise to put that in. As regards your other question, I think you mentioned about access. Again, I reiterate, we're not looking at that, and subject to later on, if the applicant wanted to put another access in, or main access, that would be a separate application. Have I missed any other of your questions? I think it's all the boxes, John. Councillor Whitaker.
Chairman. Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head with your last comment about access. However, as a committee, we are legally and morally obliged to look at everything on the portal and to view the documents, which I certainly have done, and I'm sure all my colleagues have. And, I did notice that the Warninglid Residents Society, plus a number of local occupiers residents, have made very sensible suggestions. They all almost in unison that they support the scheme, which I do. Fantastic scheme. It's a credit to all the speakers here. But I also have a lot of sympathy with Councillor Boyle and also Councillor Marsh, who clearly know the patch. It's their patch. And, the old adage is they know their patch better than we do that don't. So fantastic application. I do have concerns about the access, I have to say. And, I'm disappointed in such a fine application that the pursuit and discussion of a one-way system or some use of that secondary access hasn't been pursued and found its way before us today. I think that point, it's already been made by Councillor Bates, Councillor Eves and others, and I think it's valid, and this message should go out to future applications because it's important. And the comment about, the county council highways, it often causes a lot of debate and a lot of disagreement and a lot of frustration. So I just wanted to make that point. On the site visit, we weren't actually, on Monday, when most of us were there, we weren't actually shown or discussed the main site access or even visit the secondary access, just as a technical point. But overall, I'm very supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. Like I say, we're looking at the application before us today, and your comments are well noted. I think that's... Councillor Hatton.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to support what everybody else has said. It looks to be a very exciting project, and it seems a great pity, as Councillor Whitaker has said, that, this question about access has not been dealt with in a different way, really. And I just think it needs to go in the minutes, at least, that I think the majority of us feel very unhappy about the fact that the other access has not been considered. I don't know what we can do about it, but I think we're here to make comments and give advice and all the rest of it, and I think it needs to be noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haddon. Yes, there's certain, obviously, a lot of comments about highways issues, but then the Highways Authority have no objection to it. So I'm afraid, whether we like it or not, there's nowhere to go on that one. I think this happens quite a lot through the planning process, where we perhaps sometimes don't agree with the Highways decision, but that's the way it is. I'm afraid we have nowhere to go. So I see no other questions on this. Do I have a proposer? Councillor March. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jackson, and I will read out the recommendations before you go to the vote. Recommendations are on page 72. It is recommended that planning permission be approved subject to the conditions set out in Appendix A and the update sheet. Thank you, boss. Again. So members would like to vote on their voting buttons now, please. Wait for that to come up on the screen. Thank you very much. Very much, Joanne. There will be a brief pause while the office stations are sanitised. And thank you for all those that turned up this afternoon for the previous two applications.
These two round, please.
And Nicholas wants to go second.
Yeah, James first, Nicholas second.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Terry. Oh, right, thank you. Okay, members, I'd like to resume this planning committee. The item 7 on the agenda is DM 21/3870. And this is Burgess Hill Northern Arc, land north and northwest of Burgess Hill, between Beadlands Nature Reserve in the east and Goddard's Green wastewater treatment works in the west. And I'd like to thank Louise for taking us through this application when you're ready. Sorry.
When we started all this many years ago, I don't have to declare any interest, do I?
I think time has passed.
Councillor for Hurstpur Point and Sayers Common. Should I declare an interest?
I think if you say that, councillor for Hurstpur Point and Sayers Common, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm a councillor for Hurstpur Point. I'm a councillor for Hurstpur Point and Sayers Common.
That's all right, Councillor Coote. Thank you for joining us. Okay, I need to get on, and Louise, if you'd like to take us through the application, I'd be very grateful. Thank you very much. Slight technical issue, but I'm sure we'll be with you in a moment. change your name for this one. You'd want to be. Not do that, Terry, if we...
Chairman. So this application is a reserve matters application for access, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale for a total of 249 dwellings, which includes the conversion of Lowlands Barn to form 2 dwellings, along with an extension to Beadlands Nature Reserve and various open spaces. The members will recall that outline planning permission was granted back in 2019 for the Northern Arc development. This was for 3,040 dwellings, neighbourhood centres, schools, employment land and open spaces. This slide shows the land use parameter plan that was approved as part of that application. The principle of this development has therefore been established, and we are just looking at the reserve matters this afternoon. This slide shows the phasing plan. This application proposes development of parcel P1.3, which is down here, parcel P1.5 up here, parcel P1.6 here, open space parcel 1.6 here, open space parcel 1.5 here, and then part of open space parcel OS 1.1A, OS 1.1B, and OS 1.2N. The remainder of the development within the open space parcels, which isn't covered by this reserve matters application, is anticipated later this summer. So this slide shows the reserve matters site within its context. So to the west of the site, you've got Isaacs Lane running down here. The Eastern Bridge and Link Road, which is currently under construction, runs through the site here, with the bridge across the River Ada just here. The Freaks Farm development, which is also currently under construction, is here in between the sort of 2 areas of the site. Beadlands Nature Reserve is located here to the east. And in relation to the development itself, residential development with intervening open spaces is located here to the west of the site. Open space is located here along the river corridor. This will include the Green Circle pedestrian, cycle and equestrian route, which would be located in this space, and will eventually join up with the existing Green Circle within Burgess Hill. To the east of the river, this area here will all be public open space, and this will form an extension to the existing Beadlands Nature Reserve. And finally, there is a smaller parcel of residential development down here in the south of the site. Now, this is some drone footage of the Eastern Bridge and Link Road, where the majority of the proposed development is proposed to be located. So down here at the bottom of your screen, you can see the River Ada. Either side of the road along the river corridor will be open spaces where the Green Circle will run. This area to the north of the road will eventually become a secondary school, subject to a separate reserve matters application. And for this reserve matters application, the majority of residential development will be located here and here, either side of the Eastern Bridge and Link Road. This is a line of hedgerow, which currently forms part of the reserve matters application, and there will be a corridor with a pedestrian and cycle route running through it. And this tree line boundary down here forms the southern point of the site. And again, this will be retained as an open space parcel with an entrance through to the eventual Eastern Neighbourhood Centre through that gap in the trees there. This slide shows the main area of development on this parcel, which is to the west of the site. 222 houses would be located in this area. The development would be situated either side of the Eastern Bridge and Link Road, which runs here through the site. There will also be a new road which will link through from Isaacs Lane here in the west to the Eastern Bridge and Link Road here in the east. The houses would be arranged in perimeter blocks and would predominantly consist of two-storey dwellings with higher three-storey apartment blocks here and here fronting the Eastern Bridge and Link Road and in key locations where you've got key views through to key buildings, so here and here. 30% affordable housing would be provided in line with our policy, and the affordable housing would be dispersed throughout the parcel. Parking within this area would also be provided in line with the West Sussex standards, and that would be in a mixture of off-street parking on driveways and in garages and carports, and also parking within parking courts and some on-street car parking. I'll now show you a selection of street scenes. So these first ones show the flats which are proposed that front the Eastern Bridge and Link Road. These flats would be 3 stories. The natural rhythm of the windows, balconies and gable elements help break up the long facade, and the brick detailing, which you can see on this image here, and the banding adds further interest to the frontage. The building would be faced with red brick and grey roof tiles, full details of which would be secured by condition to ensure that these are of high quality. This slide shows some key street scenes to the west of the site. This area would comprise both 3-storey apartment blocks and a mixture of 2-storey, semi-detached, detached and terrace dwellings. These buildings would be faced with a range of materials to ensure variety, and these include timber boarding, bricks and hanging tiles. Gable features would add interest to the facades. This slide shows the apartment blocks which are to the north of the plot, here, just fronting the Eastern Bridge and Link Road. And these ones to the south are the dwellings which front the open space to the south. That would be interspersed with landscaping, which the scheme has been designed around. So a village green is located here, in this corner. Housing would surround this, and this would be sort of an informal open space with some informal children's play and landscaping. To the south, a landscape corridor is proposed between this Reserve Matters application and the future Eastern Neighbourhood Centre. This follows the existing line of trees on site that I showed you in the drone footage. A landscaped corridor here would run north to south, and this will run between what will eventually become the secondary school in the north of the site and the Eastern Neighbourhood Centre in the south. As I've previously said, this route will provide an off-road pedestrian and cycle route for pupils accessing the school and the Eastern Neighbourhood Centre. And in this corner of the site, there would be a suds pond with footpaths surrounding it, an informal open space in the river corridor where the green circle would run through. This slide shows the developed area in the east of the site. The access to the site would be provided through an existing, well, it's not existing, sorry, through a proposed road which is to be developed on the Freaks Farm development. And this crosses over Freaks Lane here and accesses into this site. So Freaks Lane runs up here. So 27 units will be provided in this location, 25 new built dwellings and 2 apartments which would be converted from the existing Lowlands barn. Again, this area would have 30% affordable housing in line with the council's policy, and parking would be provided in accordance with the West Sussex standards. Cycle parking would again be provided for every unit. This slide shows the elevations on this plot. The buildings would be similar in appearance to those on the east of the site with similar materials used. This parcel would include the conversion of Lowlands Farm. As you can see from the photographs, there are various unsympathetic extensions to this barn which have been added over the years. The majority of these would be removed, and the building would then be improved to create 2 apartments. A new glazed entrance would be provided in the centre of the building, and new glazed openings will be provided in order to provide high standard of accommodation for the future occupiers. In relation to the public open space, which is proposed as part of the proposal, the main area is this area here, and this is the extension to Beadlands Nature Reserve. So intervention in this area is proposed to be minimal, but it will include footpath surfacing and some maintenance to existing routes in this area, the removal of some existing inappropriate boundary treatments which are dotted around the site, and some hard standing areas. And development will also include some installation of post and rail fences and timber benches in appropriate locations. Other areas of more general open space are this area along the river corridor. So this will be informal in nature, but the intervention here will be the delivery of the green circle. So these routes and details shown on this plan are all indicative, and full details of the landscaping and hard surfacing in these areas are proposed to be secured by condition. In relation to sustainability, the proposal would meet the Future Home Standards, which is obviously also known as Part L of the building regulations, for all dwellings in advance of the requirement to do so. Overall, there would be a 31% improvement in CO2 emissions against the current building regulations. The sustainability measures predominantly include fabric specification, which is currently better than the fabric values which will be required to meet Part L. 113 of the houses would have PV panels. The remainder of the houses, they haven't got PVs on them because of their orientation or overshadowing makes them unsuitable for PV. They will be provided with air source heat pumps. And finally, all the apartments will be provided with hot water heat pumps. In relation to biodiversity, the proposal is considered acceptable in relation to protected species, and the proposal would deliver a 21.16 biodiversity net gain for habitat units and 26.36% biodiversity net gain for hedgerow units. This is well in excess of the 10% required. These uplifts have been achieved through the retention and enhancement of key habitats on the site. So this image at the top, this shows the hedgerow which runs from north to south from the school to the Eastern Neighbourhood Centre in the south. So there's an existing hedgerow which runs along here, as you can see from this photograph, and additional planting would be planted alongside this hedgerow to enhance this area on this side and then on both sides as you get further to the south. Again, this area to the south, this follows the existing tree line here, and this area would again be enhanced with further landscaping. The other areas of landscaping on the site will all include further landscape enhancements. In summary, the development is acceptable in principle, and this application is to consider the reserved matters of access, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. The proposal would deliver a proportion of the homes currently included within the Council's 5-year housing land supply. The delivery of these homes are important to ensure the Council's 5-year housing land supply is maintained. The proposal has an acceptable design, an acceptable impact on trees and landscaping, and would not harm any heritage assets. Large areas of open space for recreation are provided as part of the proposal, which is a benefit to both the proposed community and the existing community in Burgess Hill. And the proposal would deliver an appropriate housing mix and level of affordable housing, all of which would have a high standard of accommodation. There would be no harm to existing adjoining occupiers around the site. With regards to ecology and biodiversity, the proposal is acceptable and will deliver in excess of the biodiversity net gain requirements. And the proposal goes above and beyond the current building regulations in terms of sustainability and delivers renewable energy for all the dwellings. And just to remind members that there is an update which amends conditions, but it has additional information with regards to ecology and There is an amendment to condition 1 to include all the relevant drawings, an amendment to condition 11 to add hedgerow mitigation planting which is required, an additional condition 21 to secure dormouse mitigation, and finally an additional condition 22 to secure hard copy drawings for the wheelchair user flats. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Louise. We have two speakers speaking for this application, and I'll call on the first speaker, Mr. James McConnell, and he's from Bellway Homes Joint Applicant. Not sure whether he was in the room earlier, but you're allowed 3 minutes to speak on the traffic light system. When the green light comes on, you have 2 minutes. When the amber light comes on, you'll have 30 seconds. And when the red light comes on, I will ask you to finish and round up to your nearest sentence. Please continue when ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. My name is James McConnell. I'm a planning consultant representing Bellway Homes, who are the joint applicant for this development together with Homes England. As you've heard, this is the first Reserve Matters application to be submitted for the Northern Arc development that was granted outline permission in 2019 and will eventually provide over 3,000 homes. Delivering this strategic development is complex, and the objectives extend far more than looking inwardly at the layout and the design of the dwellings. They include placemaking objectives, such as how these subphases will integrate with adjacent components, like the secondary school and the Eastern Neighbourhood Centre, and how important infrastructure, including the Green Circle and the Beadlands Nature Reserve extension, are delivered. So many issues have therefore been addressed in considerable levels of detail through this application, including design, landscaping, sustainability and ecology, to name but a few. We've been challenged extensively by your officers in developing this application, along with other interested groups, including the Design Review Panel and our joint applicant, Homes England, as landowner, to ensure that this application delivers a high-quality, sustainable development. In turn, Bellway has engaged positively in the many wide-ranging discussions that have ensued, so that we're now able to present to you this high-quality, sustainable development that meets the long-term aims and objectives of the Northern Arc development. Some of the key attributes, and many of which the case officer has outlined in her introduction to you, include a contemporary bespoke design with a wide range of house types and sizes, all designed to the national space standards, with 20% wheelchair accessible and some wheelchair user units. 30% affordable housing provision, evenly distributed throughout the site, policy-compliant car parking and extensive electric vehicle charging provision, imaginative landscaping that emphasises native planting, a 31% reduction in carbon emissions against the current building regs, with every new home to include renewable technologies in the form of either PV, air source heat pumps or hot water heat pumps, a biodiversity net gain of more than 20%, and a pocket park linking the development to the secondary school to facilitate safe and easy access of children into the school with a strong access from the Eastern Neighbourhood Centre. So, pulling that together, Bellway are proud of the development in front of you this afternoon. We hope that you're able to lend your support to this application and enable the Northern Arc to deliver much needed new housing and improved infrastructure and connectivity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There will be a slight pause while the station is sanitised. And the next speaker is Mr. Nicholas Milner from Homes England. Afternoon. Please continue when you're ready.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair, committee members. My name is Nicholas Milner, and I'm the planning lead for Northern Arc at Homes England. In our role as Government's Housing and Regeneration Agency, Homes England seeks to drive higher quality design and sustainability standards and this process starts when we prepared the outline planning permission for Northern Arc. This process continues when we procure and score our developer partners on design and sustainability when they submit bids. We have worked with Bellway, Mid Sussex District Council officers and the design review panel to ensure that this reserved matters application meets the outline planning permission, design code, national and local planning policy. Indeed, Bellway have worked hard to ensure the proposals will deliver a highly sustainable development which will achieve a 31% reduction in carbon emissions against current building regulations. The proposal also meets the forthcoming future home standards 3 years before it comes into compulsory requirement. In practical terms, every new home will include various renewable technologies, which include solar panels, air source heat pumps, hot water heat pumps, and electric vehicle charging points. Bellway is also proposing a fabric-first approach to further reduce energy demands. Homes England fully supports the sustainability strategy and technologies that Bellway is proposing, and we are committed to ensure that every plot that comes forward is as sustainable as possible. Homes England considers it is important that the proposals at Northern Arc lead on environmental benefits. The development has been designed to protect and enhance the sensitive areas of the site and includes a 13-hectare extension to Beadlands Nature Reserve. Section 106 requires a minimum of overall 10% biodiversity net gain. Homes England's initial calculations suggest that an overall biodiversity net gain of 23% can be achieved across Northern Arc. It is pleasing to report that Bellway's proposals achieve a biodiversity net gain of at least 20%, which demonstrates we're on target to exceed the minimum. One of Homes England's key objectives is to improve design quality of new homes, and we have worked with Bellway, your officers, and the design review panel to ensure high-quality design. Homes England's role as master developer is to ensure that these proposals are designed seamlessly with the adjoining parcels. We have worked with Sisk & Sons, the contractor for EBLR, and West Sussex Schools team to ensure that this happens. A key element in this area of the Northern Arc is the Pocket Park and School Square. Homes England has worked with our partners to ensure this space will be a high-quality public space which will be beneficial to the Northern Arc residents and secondary school. Homes England considers Bellway's proposals will create a high-quality, sustainable neighbourhood which exceeds both national and local planning policy, especially in design and sustainability. Thank you for listening.
Very much. Okay. Members, reserved matters application. I think the presentation was very good. Do you have any questions? Councillor Band. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think 3 questions. Electronic vehicle charging points there. I note that the developer plans to actually put them into all driveway homes, which I take for granted to a certain extent nowadays. My concern is more like developments where the flats and the terraced houses are going to be, if they actually front the pavements. I've recently experienced site visits down at Gamblewell, for instance. We've got electronic vehicle charging points coming out of houses across the pavement to cars, and that in no way is either socially or environmentally acceptable. So I hope the developer notes that for the, shall we say, the less, shall we say, desirable residences, the smaller houses and flats. They need access to electrical vehicle charging points on an equal basis in the future. Now, my next point is I was looking at the plans and the turning areas which are required. They're detailed in the plans if you look, but they're not, as far as I can see, protected by condition, like the parking spaces are in perpetuity. So my question really is, yeah, we've got to put the turning points in to actually provide space for movement. However, frequently in many developments, these turning circles or turning spaces become parking spaces. And without something in our decision to actually add some weight, we need something in there to protect future residents as required in our district plan, to actually make certain that those areas are kept clear. My question is, how are we going to do that? How are we going to achieve that? Because I do not want to actually approve developments where future residents are actually faced with arguing with each other over whether or not that parking space should be clear, whether or not they can get the ambulances in for their children or anything else, because it shouldn't happen. We need to set very high standards and see them delivered. My last question is an easy one, actually. What is a hot water heat pump? I actually don't know, so I don't know anyone else here can answer that question, but I'd certainly like to know what it is. I know what the other heat pumps are. Please, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, on the first point on charging points, on page 188, for all properties with on-street parking, there will be sufficient charging points to be ahead of the emerging electric vehicle market. So hopefully it answers your question for terrace houses, flats. No.
For future provision.
Louise, would you like to answer that?
Okay, so the electric vehicle charging points were secured by condition on the outline scheme. Bellway have said their intention is to deliver over and above that in accordance with the current West Sussex standards, which is for 37% of the dwellings off plot to have electric vehicle charging points. There is a condition on the recommended on the current Reserve Matters report, which requires full details of the electric vehicle charging points to be submitted and approved, and that will ensure that we deliver the electric vehicle charging points, first of all, in accordance with that uplifted figure, and secondly, to make sure that those charging points are sited appropriately in relation to the parking spaces on the scheme.
Well, the question was about turning spaces.
In relation to your second point, there are two things that we can do here. Firstly is in relation to the materials for these areas, making sure that when we approve the hard standing materials, of which there is already a condition, that it is clear which areas are for parking and which areas are for turning. And in addition, we could add an additional condition requiring that all the turning points as shown on the appropriate drawings are retained in perpetuity for as long as the development remains in existence. Finally, the hot water heat pumps. Now they work in a similar way to air source heat pumps, so they heat up hot water from the air outside, but they are related only to hot water, whereas air source heat pumps are related to heating and hot water.
Thank you very much. Councillor Marsh.
Wondering why it's that. It kept on flashing at me, and I was thinking, what have I done wrong? Can I thank, first of all, Sally and her team to get us to this stage. It's been a long time coming, and I really like to congratulate yourself and Sally and her team to get to this stage. I particularly welcome the extension to Beadlands. When I had that portfolio, I was looking forward to this part of Beadlands sort of being added to the existing Beadlands. And if it has the same biodiversity as it has on the old one, then it's just an exciting times. I think following up to what Councillor Band has said about the turning, the corners of people parking where they shouldn't be parking. I think in the past, we've worked with county trying to get a state TRO system, and I think you alluded to it, by marking it out, don't park here, but I think it does need a little bit of teeth to it. I think I sympathise with Councillor Ban on that, because the last thing you want, and I think we all know where it is, and that is the new state, which we say in Hayward Heath, which a previous government may have allowed to go through, and parking on that is terrible down there. So I welcome this, and I'm really pleased we've got the first reserve matters. I would like to see, dare I say, an avalanche. I doubt it. There would be likely to have an avalanche of them coming through. But this is on a regular basis now as we get the site fully up and working, because much needed homes, 3,000 homes, 30% of them affordable. We do have waiting lists, and there's much to welcome about this. I didn't know what a hot water air source pump was as well, so that was a new for me as well. So thanks for asking that question. Yes, there is a lot going for it, and the corridor was that which has indicated that you can take people off the road, to get to the schools, get to the other places. It's all been very well thought out, and I'd like to thank Bellway, and I'd like to thank Homes England for getting us to this stage, and I most certainly will be voting for it, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. Yes, like you say, quite rightly so, it's a long time coming. There's been a lot of work gone by Homes England and their partners to get this up and running. So, yes, it's a wonderful application, and of course, it certainly helps towards our 5-year housing land supply. Councillor Bates, you wanted to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's really more of a comment in as much as I've had a lifetime of experience with this sort of development process. I think this is a good approach that's being taken at the present time. One thing that does concern me with all these developments is the added extra tax that people are now having to pay for the management of their estates, which is basically another leasehold fee. I wrote down the first word on my notes, sustainability, and I'm not convinced by that, in as much as yesterday and 24 hours ago I was in a very sustainable place. I saw a wonderful development. It's a courtyard type development, and I could link into probably the world's biggest cycling network at virtually no cost whatsoever. Here you cannot go from this development to Hayward Heath. So I have my doubts about the sustainability of it. Technically, maybe, we're a long, long way behind the standards of building work still, a long way to catch up. So basically, it's just an observation, really.
You, Councillor Bates, I'm sure a lot of people would like cycle routes all over the place, but the cycle highway through the Northern Arc is I think it's quite impressive and very adequate. Obviously, we always looking to look at sustainable transport, cycling, walking. So I commend the developers for that. Go to the next speaker, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. Looking through the various submissions in this document, it's all very interesting and all very detailed, and I will most of it. What I do say is that this will obviously set a template for subsequent requirements for the next phases of the Northern Arc development as we move westwards through the scheme. But what I can see so far, there's not anything in it that I want to object to, and so I'm going to support this application.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Eaves.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I would welcome the distance that Bellway has gone since the original application, thanks not least to our wonderful design review panel. I agree very much with what Councillor Bates has just said about the cycle path to Haywards Heath. Let's hope this puts pressure on for it finally to happen. I deplore the fact that anybody has been given permission to build east of Freaks Lane. I think that's a real shame because it's close to Beadlands. It's a shame. Hot water heat pumps for the flats. The thing with those is that there has to be an aperture 2.5 metres apart on the front of the flats, which wasn't shown in the drawings, but that will show on the fronts. Beelands extension is great. My question would be, when will that be handed over to the Friends of the Green Circle? And just to flag up, I know it's outside the red line, but to the northeast of this, there's going to be a whacking great slurry lagoon, which I predict will be an odour problem for the school and the Bellway development. So I know the chair will probably rule me out because it's outside the red line, but I want everybody to know about it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Would you like to answer those, Louise?
The handing over of the Beadlands Nature Reserve to MSDC is secured in the outline planning application as part of the Section 106 agreement. Apologies, I don't have the trigger on me at the moment, but I can pass that over to you by email following on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Band, you wanted to come back on this is a new question. You switch yourself off.
Right, I'm on now, am I?
You're back on.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to speak just once more, Chairman. Just really to actually, out of respect that Councillor Trumbull was not here, you know, I like the design of the development a great deal, and really to underline that we're not seeing yet another development that's inflicting more of the Sussex vernacular on us. I'm very pleased to see this. Thank you very much.
Well, I see no other questions. Can I have a proposer for this application? Councillor Marsh and Councillor Ben second. Okay, I will go to the recommendations. It is recommended that planning permission be granted subject to the conditions set out in Appendix A and the update sheet. Please can we go to the voting buttons? Thank you. It's come up on the big screen. Thank you very much. Well, I'm quite pleased that application has gone through. I would like to thank Sally and her team that has actually done a wonderful job, and thank you, Louise, for taking us through it. Members can remain seated while we go off live stream. Thank you. Oh, beg your pardon, sorry, before we go. Item 6 on the agenda, sorry, I missed that one. Questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2, due notice of which has been given. I have none. And close this meeting at 4:20.